Right. Well, I think I will leave it there now, and we'll start. So, good afternoon to all of you. Good morning here from London in the UK, where I'm dialing in from. Thank you very much for joining our webinar this morning, Paywalls and Pandemics, ensuring seamless remote access and data security. I'm very delighted to say that we are joined by Caroline Gould from the University of Melbourne, who'll be sharing her experience of using the OpenAthens and Lean Library integration. I'm also joined by my colleague Christos Skoutas from OpenAthens, who will be speaking to the OpenAthens part of the integration. And then from our part on the Lean Library side, my name is Matthew Hayes. I'm the Managing Director of Lean Library. And I'm joined by my colleagues, Daniel, our Product Manager, and Tim, our Development Manager based in Australia. So I will kick off and then hand over to my colleagues. So the agenda today, we're going to start off by sharing some highlights from Melbourne's experience, just to whet your appetite for the rest of the webinar. And then very brief introductions to OpenAthens and Lean Library, in case you're not familiar with our various companies and what they do. And then we'll dive into the integration and the experience at Melbourne, leaving plenty of time for questions. I will be monitoring the questions as best I can during the webinar, but if I don't pick them up during the webinar, please rest assured that we will give plenty of time at the end to address your questions. So this is a good way to start the webinar. Caroline is going to speak to this in much more detail later, but this shows you the increase in usage that Melbourne have seen as a result of integrating with OpenAthens and Lean Library, which is particularly remarkable in the context of the remote access challenges of the pandemic. And what you can see here are the OpenAthens authentication points, which is our proxy here for usage. And you can also see in the little bubbles the growth in Lean Library users as well. So I hope that shows you some of the potential benefits of this integration, but we believe there are plenty of others as well. So with that being said, I'm going to hand over to Caroline.
Thanks, Matt. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Just trying to make sure I've got control. Looks like it. So thanks very much, everyone, for being here with us. As Matt said, my name's Caroline. I'm from the University of Melbourne. I'm presenting from home today. My home is on the traditional lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. So I'd just like to pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and their current and emerging leaders before we start. So the University of Melbourne is very interested in improving the user experience for our users online. We've been interested in this for quite some time prior to the pandemic, but with the shift last year in focus on digital experience and on the online experience, our interest has really massively increased. And so when we first started out on our little journey implementing OpenAthens and Lean Library, we did so in response to our user experience research. What I'm going to do now is just take you through some of that user experience research so you understand where we came from when we went to the implementation of both Lean Library and OpenAthens. Matt, I'm not sure if I have control. I probably do. Okay, so what you can see on the screen at the moment is a summary from our user experience of what search tools our users use when they're trying to get some research either for an assignment or start a research project. The research that this is based on is one-on-one user experience interviews that we did over the course of 2019 and 2020. So we found from that actually not many people start their search on a library search tool like Discovery or the catalogue. Primarily, when users think of searching for something, they go to Google, and they have a kind of pattern for how they will, how they'll research, they start out on something like Google or a more general search tool to get some idea of how they're going to conduct their research, what keywords they need, what the scale or scope of the queries they might want are. And then they go and look at more refined resources. They might go to Discovery or the catalogue, or to Google Scholar, or they might go to a particular discipline-specific database. And actually, I don't have remote control. Sorry, got it. And what we came up with from our user experience research is a journey map. And don't panic or make an optometrist appointment. You do not need to be able to read all of this text. I just wanted to show you the pretty colours. So we came up with this journey map, and it's kind of meant to show you in a logical sequence what research process the students go through when they're trying to find research. In this case, it's just for the students who are doing research for an assignment. It's been made to look linear, although, as we know, research processes are not linear, but there are clear steps in a research process. And so we've laid them out left to right in a more or less chronological sequence. The blue, dark blue at the top is just the heading for the step, and the light blue just gives a little description about it. So don't worry too much about those. You can see that we've got steps from when they're given their assignment all the way through when they're looking at their readings or doing some searching, finding and accessing their results and writing up. What you need to look at is the green and red pieces down at the bottom part of the journey map. A green text paragraph indicates somewhere where they were being helped by something, particularly something that is of interest to us. And the red area is that access is a pain point. And you'll notice that most of those pain points are clustered in the middle around the area where they're trying to search for resources. And the things that they are coming up with as problems are that they don't know if they've got access to things, links that they are given are broken, they can't quite work out our systems to get through successfully from the point where they've found a resource to where they can access it, or they can't physically work out how to manage all of the tabs they might have or all of the resources they might find. So we can see when students are doing research that they have all of these problems clustered around that search performance in the middle of the process there. And this is where we've got Discovery. And like most libraries, we have a Discovery search tool as a way to give a user somewhere where they can search the whole of our collection. But what we find with Discovery, and this NPS rating will give you an example of the issues, it's okay, but it's not great. So this NPS score of 12, I mean, that's okay because it's positive. It could be negative, but it's not a great score. The catalogue got a score of about 65. So users are expecting something different from Discovery to what they're getting. Interestingly, when we did this satisfaction assessment, you'll see the blue line across the middle of the screen there. That indicates the average satisfaction for the day. Where you see a big dip, a big negative, that was because one of our major information system vendors like Taylor and Francis or ProQuest was down and we didn't know about it. And our clients didn't report it to us, but they did give us a bad mark in our satisfaction survey. So we know that we have issues with what they expect and with them understanding what they can do about problems when they, find an error message they can't understand. So we see a lot of issues for our users, not just in our systems, but also in managing their technology. And along with that NPS feedback session we had there, which gave us a rating, we also asked them for some comments. And here's some of their comments. I love some of these, although, I mean, I really do feel the pain of some of these students who are obviously thumping their head against the desk when they say, we can't get through to resources. But the way they express things really gives you an understanding of what they're trying to do. When we looked into each of these comments and contacted the students where we could and looked at what the problem was, in pretty much every single case, the problem was related to the way we provide them their access. Part of it was that we're using easy proxy, and so they're not logged in at the other end and their sessions time out a lot. And also it behaves differently on campus and off campus. Another problem is that there are issues with them understanding where they are in our systems, whether they're in Discovery or the catalogue or on, a vendor's system. So their direct feedback was telling us that they really just couldn't cope with what they saw in front of them. And in many cases, they didn't understand where they were. They need simple solutions that will just give them access and that will help them to work with the search tools that they're used to, which unfortunately for us is the Google stuff. So that's where we got to from doing our research. And when we followed up with the more in-depth surveys of students and got them to show us how they did things, we saw things like this that confused them. They got confused when they went from Google to a database, which plenty of people do, because they would see the login prompts and they wouldn't know, some of them sadly did not know which name to put in to find their institution. They would put in Melbourne Law School instead of University of Melbourne, or they would put in the name of the research institute that they were connected to instead of the institute's main name. They didn't understand terminology like OpenAthens or Shibboleth, library-specific terminology, and even the names of our search tools like the catalogue and discovery were causing them a lot of confusion. We had a few other issues with students, and this is particularly for the newer students who have never seen anything like the screen you see there, which is our Open URL Resolver, find it at UniMelb. So if they go through to that from Google Scholar or anywhere, and they're looking at a very popular resource that might be in multiple databases, they're going to get a massive list of online sources. And the final comment in that list came pretty much verbatim from a couple of students, basically saying, look, we don't know what it is about this thing, but it pretty much always lists the difficult stuff at the top, the things that are hard to connect through to, the things that you couldn't find the PDF for. Really, when they've found a resource, they just want the full text. They don't really need all of this additional functionality that we've been trying to give them to show them how they can request it from another library or site or save their sources. So we had tools that are quite good for a certain type of user, but we were presenting them to our users in the wrong spot, and they weren't seeing things that were really simplified. So we have, from all that user experience research, quite a lot of information that we can use to identify systems that will help our clients. And when I looked through all of that, I could pick out two really big things. Firstly, authentication was causing a big problem, or the lack of it rather. Easy proxy was causing a major issue. And then secondly, we needed some way for people who started at Google, those 75% of people who start there, to identify that we've got a licensed subscription and to get into it. And that's when I found Lean Library. So Lean Library and OpenAthens work together to solve this problem for our clients. And I'm going to hand over to Christos now from OpenAthens to explain what Lean Library is and how it works. Christos.
Thank you, Caroline. Can you hear me okay? Oh, let me see if I can. Yeah, right. So hello, everybody, and thank you for taking the time to join us today. In terms of OpenAthens, I always like to start with why does OpenAthens exist? So essentially, OpenAthens is all about removing barriers to knowledge and connecting people to information. And how do we do that? We are essentially providing a robust and reliable getaway between that subscription-based content and the people that need access to it. And when we talk about the subscription-based content, we're talking about journals, databases, essentially library or research e-resources, anything that sits behind a paywall, essentially. So the end users typically are students, they could be medical researchers, they could be people from a research and development department, even a corporate business. But wherever there is that function to access subscription-based content, that's the sort of getaway that OpenAthens provides. And what is OpenAthens? It's a single sign-on software that enables people to access digital content. Now, when we talk about single sign-on in OpenAthens, we mean a single username, user ID and password, or username and password that you put once on the start of the research session, because I understand that there are lots of different ways of interpreting single sign-on. And to some people, it's kind of the same sign-on. It's the same credentials in different places. Sometimes it's the same credentials and there are more than once. But from an OpenAthens perspective, what we think about is as a single sign-on is a single set of user credentials and they're once at the start of your research session, and then from there on, it's a kind of seamless experience. The user goes from one platform to another without any problems. So in OpenAthens, we do really believe that accessing that subscription-based content should really be as simple, easy, and pain-free as possible. So we understand that end users are familiar with the kind of seamless experience when they go accessing Google, Facebook, Amazon. There is a personalization element there as well. It's kind of wrapped around that end user, and those experiences are the same. The expectation from the user is that the experience is sort of the same in the library. And when they access that subscription-based content. So we're trying to make it as simple and easy as possible. Not having to remember different usernames, password, use any funky software. Essentially, it's about providing fast and easy access to the content that you as a library subscribe to. And from a library's perspective, it's all about putting the information in the right hands of those end users and giving you guys time back so that you can focus on things that really matter rather than getting down into the details of managing software and managing configuration. OpenAthens is really there to take a lot of that pain away. So our value really is, if we get all that right, of course, OpenAthens is all about providing a service that ends up with happy end users. People access the content, it's simply, seamless, easy, and they can do their research and things. So the time around administering the software and managing those different access rights is reduced with OpenAthens as well. So there should really be minimal administration for the library. And it's based on standards compliance technology. OpenAthens uses the SAML 2.0 protocol. So it's something that is used across the industry. It's the industry standard for web space authentication. And this is what drives the technology that we use, that OpenAthens Federation, if you're familiar with federated access. And by default, OpenAthens is going to generate statistics and insights. It's going to give libraries details around how often people are accessing your collections, potentially where they're coming from, which different departments they're coming from. But at the most basic level, it's going to tell you who is accessing the resources and how often. And then you can use that data to make better purchasing decisions. You can see that, for example, if there's a small number of individual users accessing a piece of content that, not the whole university, the whole institution needs an enterprise-wide license. Maybe you need a slightly reduced capacity license there. And that's data that you wouldn't necessarily get from the country reports, through most of your community. OpenAthens is going to tell you who your users are, not necessarily how many times they're accessing that content. And essentially, it's all about leaving the difficult stuff to us. OpenAthens has been around for 25 years, and it's evolved and developed with the software technologies and different ways that content has been delivered. So we have a team of skilled people that day in and day out, their job is to deal with authentication problems and support the problem. So essentially, you don't have to get down to the detail around that. Globally, OpenAthens is about 4,000 organizations accessing journals, databases, books, ebooks, but also software as well. So if you use an iOS system or if you use a discovery layer or virtual learning environment, OpenAthens can connect with those services as well. And our vision really is being the most user-friendly information access management experience across the world. So we work right now with the RA21 and the seamless access movement to help shape the future of authentication. Some of the things that this initiative has focused on is the user experience and across many platforms. So that when you access content based on, let's say, Science Direct platform, and then the user goes to the request platform, that experience can be a bit different from end user perspective. So with our work with seamless access, we are really attempting to make that as streamlined and seamless as possible. Now, we have plenty of partnerships all over the world with various different technologies and different publishers. But really what brings everything together is that it's all about the end user from our perspective. So we always look at the end user first, and the technology partnerships we have in place are about us building that integration between OpenAthens and those services. So OpenAthens is that sort of gateway that sits in the middle. We are agnostic over the technology and the services that are being used. And our role really is to connect those end users with that content as easy as possible. And Lean Library, that example, is a company that we started working with 2-3 years ago. We found that their technology was very complementary to OpenAthens. They sit hand in hand, and you will see in the live demo how that works. We collaborate together, we share knowledge, we support the technology. You can rest assured that the two teams, from a technical perspective and from a support perspective, work very closely together to provide a better user experience. That's for me. I'll hand over to the Lean Library guys to talk more about how it works and daily creation.
Thank you so much, Christos, and thank you, Caroline, too. Those are both really fascinating. So I'm just going to very briefly introduce you to Lean Library, or reintroduce you if you've come across us before, and then we'll dive straight into the integration with OpenAthens and show you what the experience is like for Melbourne. So I did want the opportunity to talk to you about the latest developments at Lean Library and some of the changes we've been going through in the last year or so. I'm going to begin just by playing you this short video, which is a bit of a statement of intent from us.
This is your patron, and this is their workflow. And off they go on their exciting journeys of discovery and learning. But getting to what they need takes your patron outside their workflow, bouncing them around from one site to another, making access difficult and time-consuming. You want to help them, but how? By putting the librarian in the workflow. With Lean Library, you can bring your library into your patrons' workflows, giving them instant access to library services, resources, and support, helping them reach their goals. Lean Library. Take your library to your patrons.
So I hope what that video shows you is that we are very much not just about access, and we're going to be showing you how we, with OpenAthens, streamline access for the user. But we've always been about trying to take the library into the patron's workflow, and you'll see how we do that with our access solution. But right now we're also launching new features that bring other parts of the library into the patron's workflow. We won't talk about them today, but if you are interested, please do get in touch with us, and please do look out for those integrations. It means that we're bringing things like your discovery service or your libguides into your users' workflows. So rather than having to access those on the library portal, we can actually surface those on relevant sites. So we can bring the discovery service search results onto Google Scholar, or we can bring the libguide for a particular publisher onto that publisher's page. Apologies, that always happens. Our mission at Lean Library is to help redefine and amplify the power of the academic library to advance learning and impact. And that's why we're so focused on this idea of how can we help libraries get into their patrons' workflows, because as Caroline was showing earlier, we know that the user experience and user journey for those patrons is changing. So how can we make sure that we maintain mission relevance for libraries and librarians? And that's what we're really all focused about at Lean Library. And in that respect, we are currently working on a white paper on the future of the librarian-patron relationship, which we call Librarian Futures. This survey of librarians and patrons has been running for a couple of months now and will close later this month. And we would love it if you could participate in that. We'd love your thoughts, and if you could share it with colleagues and your patrons as well, that would be fantastic. We're at, I think, 3,000 or 3,500 responses so far. So we're getting really great engagement, and feels like we're alighting on an issue that's of real importance, because so much has been written about the future of the library, but not really enough about what the role of the librarian means in that context. So please do take a look at that. And there are some very cool t-shirts in there as well that you can win. So please do take a look. And then before handing over, having explained our remit, I just wanted to show you this slide on the different products in our portfolio. So today we are talking about Lean Library Access, which integrates with OpenAthens, and Melbourne's experience with Lean Library Access, which is our comprehensive access solution. And then the other products that relate to this new ambition of expanding that into other parts of the library's service for patrons are Workflow for LibGuides, which is our collaboration with SpringShare, and also Lean Library Futures, which is an enterprise level solution that includes integrations with discovery services, publishers, and more. But I won't spend too much time on that, but I just wanted you to get a sense of where this sits in the bigger picture. So with that in mind, I am now going to hand over to Daniel, our product manager at Lean Library, to talk you through the integration with the University of Melbourne.
Thanks so much, man. Yes, so it's a question that Caroline very kindly already raised to us, and basically it is about how do users currently find resources when they are off campus. And when investigating this, oh, there you are. So sorry. When investigating this, we found a research that goes very much hand in hand also with something Caroline mentioned, and that basically talks about the tendency that users go more and more to Google and Google Scholar instead of the library's own discovery system. Now, we fully appreciate that the library's own discovery system is basically the best location to start any sort of research. It's the best collection of easily accessible resources and content. But with Lean Library, we would like to help users wherever they start their research, and we would like to guide them and help them through wherever their workflow might be. To best illustrate how we do that, I would like to show you just very quickly the process where the student starts the research on Google Scholar, the process that we like to refer to as the many-click nightmare, and hopefully you'll see why. And first screenshot, basically user looks for something, a research or an article, and hopefully an article will pop up that raises interest. Now, difficulty already starts at this point because many publishers will provide and try to provide access to all sort of authentication systems, but figuring it out what is the best and what is the library's own authentication system at this point, and expecting this from the users usually leads to confusion and difficulty. But even if the user is able to figure out and find the library's own authentication system and selects the institution and then logs in through the library's own authentication page, and is being redirected back to the article, and finally gets access to the article and to the PDF at the same time. Well, this is quite a lengthy process. We measured it to be around 12 clicks and just under 4 minutes. Now, on the other hand, I'd like to illustrate how Lean Library does that through our extension. Our extension is able to recognize when the user is not configured with Google Scholar. Now, this is something that we realize that every patron can do, of course, but many patrons don't know about it. Basically, with the extension, whoever visits Google Scholar, we are able to authenticate the user through Google Scholar. And with that, Google Scholar will realize to which holdings the user should have access to. Now, from this moment, I hopefully you'll see how much easier and how streamlined this access process looks like. With one click, the user is able to get to the library's own discovery system, from where can choose the best access point, after which the PDF can already be saved to the desktop. This is around 4 clicks and just under 1 minute. This is one example, but I'd like to just show you a few other examples to a few other features that we provide. We take pride in providing ebook coverage. And so basically being able to provide alternatives for ebooks to your patrons. This happens by scraping the page and looking for the ebook that's being viewed. Through our holdings information system to your library, we're able to see whether or not that ebook is licensed on that location, or else we are able to provide an easy redirection to your patrons to the full text location. Again, this is basically just by doing so by a click. We're also able to streamline access to aggregator source content, which usually can be unrecognized when libraries license content through aggregators. We help with that as well. And through our open access coverage, basically by integrating core and unpaywall, we are able to surface open access articles to your users as well. If your library supports ILL or TDS, as a last resort of help to your patrons, we are able to help with that as well. And through our assist messages, we are able to provide custom messages on any custom URLs or domains. Now, on the last example, what you see is basically an assist message on Kiki, for which University of Melbourne provides a custom authentication process. And so through a custom message here, the patrons can be informed where to authenticate and where to find and further information about having access to Kiki. I'd like to just quickly show a very short video that shows how you can download the extension. So sorry for that. The extension can be downloaded from our website, and we support basically all major browsers. Upon downloading, the only thing that you will need to do is select your affiliation. So basically, from the drop-down menu, you'll be able to select, in this case, University of Melbourne. And that's it. That is all that the users will really have to do with the extension. And quickly, I'd like to just show the workflow from Google Scholar that we referred to previously. Finding an article, clicking it through the discovery, and getting access to the article already. Setting up this product and integration with OpenAthens is pretty easy. And also our implementation team will support and guide you through the whole process. For this integration to work, there really is only two things that need to be configured. First of all, we'll need to configure the e-resources that are to be authenticated through OpenAthens. And basically, this is important so that the extension knows on which locations it needs to be triggered when the users are coming, when the users are off campus and are visiting a website that can be authenticated. Once this is done, integration into OpenAthens happens through the combination of entity ID and the OpenAthens scope. This is something that we already can find out, but if we cannot, then we will just reach out to you and ask for the details. Once these two things are done, basically you're ready to go. And through the admin dashboard, you're always able to fine tune your settings. So if temporarily you lose access to, or you disable access to one of your e-resource domains, you can just basically disable and update the extension with that change in the admin dashboard. I'd like to just mention that the administration dashboard is fully rebuilt, so we are proud to provide quite a bit better user experience through that. Having said that, I'd like to give it back to Caroline. Thank you so much.
Thanks very much, Daniel. Just checking I've got remote control again. Okay, so I just want to take you through now how when we set up Lean Library and OpenAthens, what we did, just to give an example of how you could do this yourself if you are interested, and also because it will help cover some of the things you need to think about if you're using Lean Library and OpenAthens. So initially we subscribed to Lean Library first, and then we set up OpenAthens. And we did this because we knew we had a reasonable user population who were using a bookmarklet with Easy Proxy. So they already had a kind of workflow where they were in a browser looking for resources and clicking a bookmarklet to get in. And so they were an obvious group of people who were going to be inconvenienced when we left Easy Proxy for OpenAthens. So we subscribed to Lean Library and started promoting it to them so that they would be able to get it installed and start using it before we had made any changes to authentication that would affect them. And what we did initially to promote Lean Library was we ran some ads. So initially I ran these in like the usual social media things, and we put one on our library website, but hardly anyone goes to that. They do tend to go straight to the search tools or their resources. But one thing that we knew we needed to do was to get to people who weren't coming to those tools, who were going from Google Scholar directly into a resource using that bookmarklet. And we put some ads on our proxy error pages. That's what you can see in the screen here. That was by far the best way to advertise to people about a tool like this, because these are people who are not using other systems. They are using the proxy, and by advertising here, we did get a few of them to load it. We put the same ad though into Discovery and onto our SFX menu when they were looking for journals, and anywhere we could into normal media, in social, email, in the faculty newsletters. So promoting it that way was pretty effective. Getting people to install Lean Library first was really good too, because we had Lean Library set up with our Easy Proxy, or those things that were using Easy Proxy. And as we migrated to OpenAthens, we set up the OpenAthens functionality in Lean Library, and those who were using Lean Library for access didn't notice any difference in their access. The other thing that I needed to do when we implemented was to make sure that the librarians who were in the branches and in the faculty meetings had some understanding of Lean Library and OpenAthens and how they would work together. And so I started out with this worksheet which explained Lean Library very briefly and had some worked examples that they could follow the links and they could see exactly how Lean Library would work. They could install it themselves, follow along with all of the different alternatives that are set up. So you've seen in Daniel's presentation earlier that you can get into aggregator resources, you can be redirected to them. It will log you into a site that we've got a subscription to. If you just go there directly, it has an interlibrary loan integration. I wanted to have a demonstration of all of those things so that people could see how they would be supported. And this worksheet was how we promoted that. And that gave us a lot of advocates across the faculties as well, in the librarians and the staff that were able to use this to understand Lean Library. It worked pretty well. So this is our take-up of Lean Library, and you can see here we started promoting in October 2019. Guess what happened in October 2019? That's when we started putting that ad on our Easy Proxy error page. So you can see that was pretty effective. We stopped doing any promotion at all in September of last year when we shut down Easy Proxy. And there was a little drop off there because that's the normal drop off at that time of year of usage of our resources. But we've got even more users this year. We've done no promotion this year, actually. So we can promote again, and we'll expect that to increase. So it's pretty effective to advertise at point of need. And it's also, it was good for us to have Lean Library in place to help our more experienced users to get over that hurdle of implementing OpenAthens and having a different way of accessing resources. So I might just take you through a few things that, the results, what's happened. Here's the slide that Matt had from earlier on, that's a great slide that shows the growth in use. Now, as you'll note here, the initial figures are probably not very reliable because we didn't officially launch OpenAthens until the end of January 2020. But after we launched OpenAthens then, we saw a big uptake in access via OpenAthens and a big uptake in Lean Library users. And when you consider the number of our users who change each year due to normal student graduations and incoming students, we think that we've done a really good job of promoting Lean Library and OpenAthens and getting them embedded into people's workflows. And certainly it's made life really easy during the pandemic because we had a single place to manage our online access. And we also had this tool, Lean Library, that we could use to put up messages and to redirect people from sites where we didn't have access to sites where we did have access. So some of the things that I noticed last year, I mean, it was a really difficult year for everyone I know. And a lot of our clients had trouble because they were on their personal devices for the first time, especially staff and more experienced researchers who had to leave their labs. And by having OpenAthens and Lean Library in place, we made sure we had seamless access. People got exactly the same experience no matter where they were. So they didn't suddenly have extra logins. They didn't have to download software. They got exactly the same access to the same resources. They didn't need to put a VPN on their personal device. And because we integrated OpenAthens with the university's central authentication system, Okta, we were able to offer for the first time true single sign-on. So a University of Melbourne student or staff member can go on, open a web browser now, if they've got Lean Library installed and they go to any university website and sign in, that's the only sign in they do in that browser session. If they then open a new tab and do some searching on Google Scholar, no more prompts for logging in, it will take them through. Lean Library will log them in if they end up at a resource that needs a login, but they won't be prompted to actually type anything in a box. True single sign-on is a little difficult to achieve. We've been trying for years and we think we're getting really, really close now. Be nice if we just didn't have to have the initial one as well, but let's see how we go. A few other things that implementing Lean Library and OpenAthens did for us, and these are more related to OpenAthens itself. We are able to protect the personal information of our clients in a way with OpenAthens that we weren't with our previous arrangements. So although people are anonymous when they use something like EasyProxy, more and more vendors were requiring a federated access or a single sign-on of some kind. And so we were having to negotiate multiple single sign-on agreements for vendors, and they were all asking for a lot of personally identifying information every time. With OpenAthens, we're able to set up one connection for our users to the central identity system, and OpenAthens will allow them to connect through, providing the minimum amount of information. We only need to send through things like email addresses and names if our license requires it. And we in the library can control that rather than having the central IT guys manage that for us and then having a problem and an extra layer of handling when there are some issues for people connecting. Because OpenAthens works so well, it supports all of the latest standards for authentication. It works beautifully with all of our security and privacy requirements, and we've never had any issues from our internal ITS cybersecurity and privacy teams with our OpenAthens setup. It's also allowed us to hand off the account management stuff and the license breach monitoring, which was unfortunately a very large workload for us. We just handed that off now to ITS. That's their job to know who is eligible for an account at the University of Melbourne and what they can do. And it's let us monitor our access as access rather than monitoring downloads or looking at counter stats and trying to work out how many people are involved there and what is the reach across the faculty. So it's really good to be able to get those kind of statistics that Christos talked about earlier. You can see in our setup who's logged in from particular groups or faculties if you set it up that way, and you can see what resources they're logging into. And we're also able to see in our Lean Library statistics what types of connections are being made and how many. So we can see how many active users we have and whether they're going in via proxies or federated access. It's great for that kind of detailed information, and it's really nice to have it all in one place. All right. Now, I think I've really gone very briefly over the top of everything you might have wanted to know about OpenAthens and Lean Library, but I hope you've got from that an understanding of why we've done this. It's about the user's experience. We want people who've got a workflow that suits them, that they start out on Google Scholar or their favorite database, or they're using Papers or some other software. We want them to be able to use their workflow without being interrupted and having to go back to the library systems. And Lean Library and OpenAthens help them do that by improving their access, by making sure that they can get in when they can find things, and by allowing us to provide them with alternatives inside their browser without any real difficulty. So I can see we've got a couple of questions coming in. So I've got one here from Karen. She wants to know what message our users who don't have access to e-resources get when they try to use Lean Library. So Lean Library is really clever. It uses our resource list. We gave our resource list to Lean Library to set up, and we also manage our domains fairly well as well. So we can go into Lean Library, we can set up messages on particular domains. So you saw earlier when Daniel was presenting that he had a little picture there from Crikey, which he made a valiant attempt at pronouncing. So we don't have a federated access to Crikey. It only allows a username and password. So we've set up the Crikey domain in Lean Library with a message to tell our clients that if they want to log into Crikey, they have to go and get the username and password from our secure repository, and the message directs them to that repository. So if we had a user who needed to get access to that and they had Lean Library installed, they'd see the message. If they went to a website where we didn't have a subscription, Lean Library would not activate at all. They would see no pop-up, they'd see nothing. Usually, users just leave the settings as they are, and these pop-ups turn up whenever they hit a site that we have a subscription for. But it is possible to switch that off so that they don't see it. And then in their browser bar, they will see the Lean Library logo, and it will turn green when they're on a site that we have a subscription for, and otherwise it'll just be grayed out like any other browser extension that isn't in use. So because it uses our subscriptions, it works really well for us, and we really like the fact that we can put those individual messages in there, particularly for specific domains, and that works really well also for things like New Scientist and Nature, those really general resources that we don't get at the publisher's site, but from an aggregator, because everyone knows New Scientist and they Google it and they end up on the generic, the publisher page, and having those pop-ups will help redirect them directly to the articles thereafter in our aggregator source, which is great. I'm just going to have a scroll through and see if anyone's got any other messages, any questions or things that you'd like me to go over again. Can't see anything. So if you had any questions, now is the time to drop them in. Oh, browsing. Thank you so much, Ali. That's a great question. How does Lean Library differ from browsing? We have browsing too. We kind of buy everything. Well, we just want to help everyone. So browsing's a really good little tool as well. So they've got a couple of things. They've got Browsing, the app that helps you with your tables of contents and your current readings. And they have a toolbar called LibKey Nomad, which has some similarities to Lean Library. It will help you to access our resources. They use a slightly different method though. They look at our subscriptions via our OpenURL resolver, and they will look at the page that you're on, find the DOI or the ISBN, shoot it off to our OpenURL resolver. If they get a response, they'll offer a download this PDF link. So that LibKey Nomad toolbar and the other ones that are like it, EndNote Click that used to be called Copernio, there's a few others I can't remember, they all work the same way. They give you a download this PDF link. So that's different to Lean Library in that they're not logging people into the site. They're just offering to download that individual PDF, and they're only able to look at things that are in our OpenURL resolver. And I'm sorry to say that we are a slightly complicated institution and we don't have our ebooks in our OpenURL resolver. We also don't have a lot of our resources in there. So Lean Library covers pretty much all of our collections because we can put up the messages for our passworded resources and things that you can't get into easily. We can put up alternatives messages on different domains, and we can support people to just log straight in and get multiple PDFs instead of having that download one at a time. Having said that, we promote the browsing products as well. We think that they suit different workflows, and so we think that people need to have options. And there's no reason why you can't run them both in the one browser. I've done that before. You have to be pretty resilient. You get a lot of pop-ups. So I've got another question here from Anton. Whether moving to OpenAthens breaks all the previous easy proxy URLs for library subscribed resources throughout the learning management system. Oh my goodness, yes, it does. I'm afraid that when you change your authentication system, if you've handed out your proxy URL, then you are going to have to update all of your URLs. Now, some libraries, when they first put a proxy in, they didn't use direct proxy URLs. They would have had some kind of, some other way of linking people to resources. But at the University of Melbourne, we just gave people the proxy URL. And we also had people using that browser bookmarklet that would easy proxy directly into a site once you got there. And that's why we got Lean Library, because that would help those people. The learning management system, the readings system, we've got eReserve, and also the catalogue had a lot of direct easy proxy links in it. We had to change all of those. So we had to go through a process when we implemented OpenAthens of doing a lot of link updating. When you implement OpenAthens, the actual implementation on their side is incredibly easy. We implemented with the help of EBSCO. They sent a letter to our 600 odd vendors and said, these guys are on OpenAthens now, here's their new details. And we got set up just like that. So you could get in via OpenAthens immediately. The problem then becomes getting the people who've got the old easy proxy link to change it and get to the OpenAthens link. And so you do have to have a project that goes through and changes any URLs. We ran a project against our easy proxy logs for a while, looking at the incoming referrer URLs, so we could find out where traffic was coming from, and that helped us to identify both internal and external systems that were sending lots of links to our proxy. And then we knew we had places where we had to go and say, hey, could you please change these URLs? OpenAthens does provide a redirector, which is something similar to a proxy URL. And you can use that redirector service to generate a new URL for your existing ones. So we did that with the eReserve, the readings, that's embedded in the LMS. We got an extract of, I think, 104,000 URLs from that system. And one of my team just did a little coding exercise to convert them into the correct redirector URLs, and we uploaded those back into the learning management system. So that was the quick way to do it. We did get rid of easy proxy now. We ran them in parallel for 6 months so that we could try and support people to move across, and then we shut easy proxy down entirely. One of the things I forgot to mention when we're talking about how we promoted this is that we promoted Lean Library and we didn't promote OpenAthens. And that might sound a bit odd because everyone's using OpenAthens and not everyone's using Lean Library. But OpenAthens is a technology that helps people to authenticate. What they're actually doing is single sign-on via the university's authentication system into a library resource. I couldn't even get my library executive to understand what it was and how it worked. And so I just couldn't see how I could promote it to people. I thought, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? If I can't explain it to the librarians, I can never explain it to the students. And so we don't try to explain it as OpenAthens. We say that we're using OpenAthens here and there, but we just say single sign-on, use single sign-on. And we use that terminology that they will hear in other places. And we hope that that helps them to understand what they're doing rather than what the label is. And generally, if we get to talk to people, we just say, Lean Library will solve all your problems, put it in your browser. And usually we find that is the case. Just looking to see if we've got any more questions. Thanks so much for these. They're great questions. And I can't see any more. So we'll wait a minute or so. I might hand back to you, Matt, for wrap up.
Thanks so much, Caroline. That was really fantastic. Nothing beats hearing directly as well from your experience, and so knowledgeable as well. So thank you. Well, then I'm looking at the chat myself as well, just to see if there's any more questions coming in. Maybe if there are any questions for Christos and the OpenAthens team or myself and the Lean Library team, please do pop those in the chat or the Q&A now.
If anyone doesn't want to ask an open question and wants to contact us later on, I'm happy. You can find me, just Google me. I'm at the University of Melbourne and my surname is pretty unique. So please feel free to email me if you've got any questions that you didn't want to ask publicly. I'm happy to talk off the record.
Thank you very much, Caroline. And thanks so much, Emiri, as well, and Janet. Yes, well,
Thanks very much, everyone.
In that case, it sounds like that concludes the webinar. So thank you very much again, Caroline. Thank you, Christos, too. And thank you all for joining us and giving us your time. We really appreciate it. Please do reach out to each of us if you have any further questions and want to take any of this forward. And hope to see you on future webinars again soon.